the initial conflict to expel the Iraqi troops from Kuwait began with an aerial and naval bombardment on January 17, 1991. Some of the first American aircraft to fly over the Iraqi skies that morning were 4 F-14 Tomcats from United States Navy's Strike Fighter Squadron 32. The Tomcat pilots had strict orders to stay with their strike team to protect electronic warfare and other aircraft at all costs, instead of chasing and engaging enemy aircraft. But when 12 airborne enemy aircraft approached the formation, the American pilots had to think fast. It was the very first day of Operation Desert Storm, and what the dozen Iraqi fighters did next took everyone by surprise. The Tomcat. Advancements during the initial decades of the Cold War in Soviet long-range patrol and bomber aircraft called for a fleet of defense fighter aircraft that could engage high-altitude bombers well beyond visual range. The iconic F-14 Tomcat was Grumman's answer to that problem. Developed for the United States Navy, the Tomcat was an American carrier-capable supersonic twin-engine variable sweep-wing two-place strike fighter. As the first of the American Teen Series fighters, the Tomcat was designed to incorporate air combat experience against the feared MiG aircraft from the Vietnam War. Built as a strike fighter, the Tomcat had a wide-ranging variety of air-to-ground ordnance in various configurations, all while simultaneously carrying the AIM-7, AIM-9, and AIM-54 Phoenix air-to-air missiles, enabling it to engage multiple hostiles over 90 miles away. Some of the aircraft's primary missions included precision strikes against ground targets, air superiority, and fleet air defense. And while in the air, the Tomcat's multiple tasks of navigation, target acquisition, electronic countermeasures, and weapons employment were divided between a pilot and a radar intercept officer. Strict doctrine. After its first deployment in 1974 with the United States Navy, the F-14 Tomcat achieved several victories during a freedom of navigation exercise off the Libyan coast in 1981. Even so, its peak came years later during Operation Earnest Will and Desert Storm, the first large-scale conflict after the end of the Cold War. While widespread belief is that the Navy's F-14 Tomcat saw little to no air combat against Iran, and even less during Operation Desert Storm, the book In the Claws of the Tomcat, U.S. Navy F-14 Tomcats in Air Combat Against Iran and Iraq, 1987 to 2000, tells a different story. Written by historian Tom Cooper, the book gathers sources from different reports, documents, and official interviews, and states that the Tomcats actually engaged dozens of potential opponents, often on the edge of the engagement envelope of their radars and their powerful Phoenix long-range air-to-air missiles. It is also said that the enemy would sometimes come in at such close ranges that the Tomcat pilots opted for their guns, ready to strike at any moment. Then, as Operation Desert Storm was launched on January 17, 1991, the enemy caught a direct glimpse of the mighty power of the F-14. Air battlefield. After President Saddam Hussein ordered the invasion of Kuwait and defied United Nations demands to withdraw from the area, the United States launched a massive air offensive, directly targeting the country's communications networks, weapons plants, and oil refineries. As the first significant engagement of the United States since the fall of the Soviet Union, the coalition effort against Iraq, known as Operation Desert Storm, included all the latest military technology, such as stealth bombers, cruise missiles, laser-guided bombs, and infrared night strike equipment. On that January day, USS Saratoga and aircraft carrier USS Kennedy joined forces to strike the Critical Air Defense Operations Center at El Walid AB and bomb Sa'ad AB. The task force included 2 squadrons, equipped with the brand-new F-14A+ variant model of the Tomcat, powered by General Electric F-110 GE400 engines. The first group to head into the target zone included 4 F-14As, led by Commander Bob Sundance Davis from Strike Fighter Squadron 32. Additionally, 8 more Tomcats escorted 8 A-6Es, 4 A-7Es, and 3 EA-6Bs. At the time, the United States Navy held firmly to the delay and disrupt fighter doctrine. F-14 fighter bomber crews were taught to stay with the strike team, protecting the electronic warfare and assigned aircraft with all they had. In addition, the Tomcat crews were given orders to delay and disrupt all attempts by enemy interceptors to target their protected aircraft, instead of charging after MiGs and exposing the American forces. Eyes on the target. As the aircraft took to the skies, an E-2 Hawkeye airborne command and control aircraft controller announced 4 groups of bogies, totaling 12 Iraqi interceptors near the Saad AB target. However, the controller did not declare them enemies. The Tomcat pilots were confused as to why someone would be conducting combat air patrol duties over that airfield on the first day of the war. However, the fighter-bomber crews were undeterred. As the Navy formation crossed the border, Commander Davis's team acquired 4 MiG-29 fighters with their AWG-9 air-to-air missiles. By the way the Iraqis were flying their orbits, it was clear they had been tasked with countering F-14s and denying them long-range Phoenix shots. And while the Iraqi pilots did not know about the delay and disrupt doctrine of the Americans, Commander Davis was not willing to take any chances. As such, he immediately ordered his formation to spike the Iraqi aircraft with AWG-9 missiles in PDS-TT mode, or Pulse Doppler Single Target Track. The Americans were ready to strike if it came to that. Meanwhile, the Iraqis reacted promptly, and while one division headed southwest along a desert highway, the others turned north and northeast. Only a single aircraft within the enemy formation considered engaging the incoming U.S. Navy formation. It was a MiG-25 pilot that, while flying at 40,000 feet and a speed of Mach 1.2, decided to turn right in the direction of one of the approaching EA-6B Prowlers that the F-14s were protecting. At the time, the Prowler was emitting its jamming. After trying to lock on a couple of times, the noise emitted by the Prowler made it impossible. With no other choice, the Iraqi gave up and turned away to follow the other aircraft heading toward the north. Even so, Davis wanted to be sure the Iraqis were retreating. He then split his division and sent 2 Tomcats after the 4 rogue MiGs that headed southwest. End of formation. Lieutenant Commander Dave Hey Joe Parsons was a radar intercept officer on an F-14A piloted by Lieutenant Commander Drew Bruegel. He was also the mission leader of the operation. Parsons' Tomcat and another, crewed by Lieutenant Voodoo Vors and Lieutenant Buno Washington, were flying as high-value escorts. As such, both were placed in the team formation's rear, but followed the action ahead of them via the fighter-to-fighter data link. According to a later account of the events, Parsons stated that the duo, quote, decided to stay with the Prowlers until they were safely out of the area, or the MiGs got too close, and then to detach the rear 2 Tomcats to deal with MiGs, leaving the other 2 to escort the Prowlers. Despite Parsons' attempt to get the Prowlers' crews to accelerate to maximum speed and engage sooner, they did not hear them due to the power of the jamming they emitted. He added, quote, "We were about to cross-turn and engage them when I detected 2 F-15s coming north on a reverse heading out of Saudi Arabia, already supersonic, and obviously vectored onto the MiGs. So we watched them pass us and launch their Sparrows. Both MiGs were downed." With the Iraqi interceptors out of the way, the rest of the strike mission went well. On the first day of the war, weather and communications-related issues were the only things standing between well-trained F-14 crews and the first hits of Desert Storm. But in the end, the F-14 Tomcats won the air battle for Saad Air Base without needing to fire a single shot. Only the beginning. The early morning engagement of January 17th was only the beginning of a 42-day war between American aircraft against a combat-experienced and well-equipped enemy. The Iraqi Air Force, fresh out of the 8-year-long war with Iran. During Operation Desert Storm, the F-14-equipped Strike Fighter Squadron 32 flew daily missions over Iraq, including supersonic runs over highly defended Al-Qaim. In total, the VF-32 air crews logged 1,445 combat flight hours on 403 missions, including 38 Combat Tactical Airborne Reconnaissance Pod, or TARPS, missions. And while the F-14 Tomcat proved to be invaluable during Operation Desert Storm, it did not really fulfill its air-to-air potential during the conflict, as the air-to-air missions were mainly assigned to F-15 Eagles. Only on one occasion did an F-14 score a single confirmed aerial victory during the war. On February 6, 1991, Lieutenant Stuart Brose and his radar intercept officer, Commander Ron McElrift from VF-1, downed a Meal Mi-8 helicopter using an AIM-9 Sidewinder. This victory balanced the loss of an F-14 down by a surface-to-air missile days before. Ultimately, the Tomcat was not used in the strike role, and many naval officers feel it was a missed opportunity. There were a lot of air-to-ground aircraft used in Desert Storm, but the F-14 didn't end up playing as crucial a role as the F/A-18 Hornet. the Navy finally retired the F-14 Tomcat in February of 2006. Thank you for watching our video. If you enjoyed it, please give us a thumbs up and share it with someone who might like it. Also, subscribe to Dark Skies, and don't hesitate to check out the rest of our Dark Documentaries channels for many more history-inspired stories. And hit the bell icon to be notified of our newest content, which we publish regularly. Stay tuned.